kind of way to say, you know what, let's focus on some more positive things. And integrated in that is the idea of solutions journalism, although we didn't realize that's what we were doing at the time. Because we wanted to say, yes, there are problems in our community, but there are people that are working to solve these problems. And as you can see on our values that we have in our office, look for solutions is right baked into all of that. So, and like I said, this was before we even knew the Solutions Journalism Network existed. So we were kind of made for each other in that aspect. So this project of infant mortality started with this question of why are there so many babies dying in Richland County? Larry came to me actually and said, we have the statistic that says Richland County is actually one of the worst counties in Ohio that for infant mortality rates. The 10-year aggregation actually from the last 10 years is the infant mortality rate is around 7.3. So that's 7.3 per 1,000, 7.3 deaths per 1,000 live births over that 10-year period. And Ohio, as a state, is actually 44th in the nation for infant mortality rates. So we're not so good as a state either. And we wanted to know why that is. You know, what are we doing wrong, kind of? So the very first series that I wrote for this, we called it Healing Hope. It actually published this last September. It was a 3-part series, and first it identified this problem of infant mortality in Richland County because it's not something that's top of mind for a lot of people. A lot of them didn't even know it existed. Plus, it's not the greatest topic. It made a lot of people uncomfortable, or it's just not something they want to think about. So the first story in the series kind of introduced this as a problem that you needed to be aware of in Richland County. The second story in the series talked about what we're already doing, what Richland County and Ohio is already doing to address this problem. And then the third part of the series really looked outwards. We kind of turned our back on Mansfield and looked outwards and said, what are other people doing that is working that we can adopt here in Richland County that might work? Ironically, I found that at Temple University Hospital, where they had implemented something called baby boxes, which probably a lot of you are familiar with now since it's kind of gone nationwide, mainstream, but at the time that was not something I'd ever heard of, where they have these babies sleeping in cardboard boxes as a way to provide a safe sleep environment, which safe sleep is one of the top 3 causes of infant mortality. You have safe sleep, you have congenital birth defects, and then you have premature birth. Of those problems, safe sleep is the easiest to address. So they had implemented this baby box program, and I wrote about that in the third part of my series to say this could be something that would work in Richland County. Long story short, right around the time that I wrote that article, the Baby Box Company, which is based in California, started moving to launch this as like a statewide programs. They first launched in New Jersey, a statewide program, and then actually in March, on March 10th, launched statewide in Ohio, the universal baby box programs. Like any pregnant mom, no matter the socioeconomic status, could get a baby box. And they actually had a satellite launch in Richland County as a result of my story. That was about 6 months after I had published it, which is ridiculously fast in that world of like, first I write it and then there's action. Like, I definitely did not expect that to happen. This was all really before we even got involved in the Solutions Journalism Network, and before we even realized that grant money was available and that we could work with them to continue this story. Like, all of this happened before we even connected with them. So then we connected with Carolyn at the Solutions Journalism Network, and received grant funding actually in January to decide what's next. What's the next part of this story? The first series really was a broad introduction of infant mortality, both in Richland County and Ohio. And we decided that using the grant funding from the Solutions Journalism Network, we wanted to delve a little deeper. There are populations that are affected a lot more by infant mortality rates, and that was something that I really wanted to explore because I felt like I didn't pay enough attention to that the first time. Not only who was affected by this, but why? Why is this happening? And then in the solutions method, what are other people doing correctly or successfully that we could also apply in our community? So the first thing is, we know this nationally, that when you look at the numbers parsed by race, there are tremendously more black infant mortality, or black infant deaths than white. And you can see in Ohio in 2015, it was almost 3 times as high. And this is not unique to Ohio, this happens everywhere. So that was kind of, looking at that, it was like, okay, we really need to look at that and say, why is this happening? Why is it so dramatic? A big thing about that is stress, which you can see on my little notepad I had an epiphany about at a meeting I went to about fatherhood in Richland County, and the fact that we're launching a fatherhood initiative to say there are so many absent fathers, and that actually affects infant mortality rates, because when there's not a father figure, even before the baby's born, it affects the stress of the mother. Everyone experiences stress on some level. But that stress is definitely intensified when you throw in socioeconomic factors like housing or the economy. Where are my babies going to sleep? What if I lose my job tomorrow and I don't have any money to pay for food? What if I can't even find a place to have healthy food? Because Richland County is actually affected by food insecurity, which a colleague of mine is also writing about. So you have these stressors that affect everyone, but black women in particular are vulnerable to these stresses because you also have this level of underlying stress because of systematic racism that they've experienced their entire lives. When you're constantly being marginalized and constantly being discriminated against, that takes a toll on your body. And a lot of people that I'll talk about in a minute have corroborated this, that this chronic stress is really taking a physical toll and could be part of the reason why black infant mortality rates are so prevalent. So then we have to look at what are other communities doing to help alleviate these stressors for pregnant women, for black women in particular. Using the grant funding from the Solutions Journalism Network, I had the opportunity to travel to Massachusetts, and in particular Boston, because Massachusetts is the #1 state for infant mortality rates, in that they have the lowest infant mortality rates in the whole country. So I wanted to know why that is. So I talked to the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, the Boston Public Health Commission. Long story short, they talked a lot about how Massachusetts and Boston are very resource rich. They have a lot of funding, particularly for like safety net programs like food stamps, for example, that kind of other states may not have. And some of it has to do with just they're a blue state, you know, and Ohio, yeah, it swings, but in particular, this last election we went red. So these policymakers at the very top are kind of affecting people's health as you go down the chain. I was also able to talk to the Mississippi State Department of Health, who are at the opposite end of the spectrum. They are last in the country for infant mortality rates because they're so high. And Dr. Charlene Collier, she talked about how, yes, part of it is the fact that Mississippi, they don't have a lot of resources publicly, and but she also mentioned the fact that Mississippi, was segregated at one time, not that long ago, and their medical care was segregated, and that still permeates through their health system today. And then I also talked to Dr. Maya Rockymore. She's the president of the Center for Global Policy Solutions. And they actually reached out to me after hearing about my work and said, we have some valuable insight for you about health equity. And their whole mission is to find out why that is, why these health inequities exist and how they affect lower income people and particularly people of color, and what they can do to help alleviate that. And then in Richland County, we have some programs. In particular, we have the Community Health Access Project, otherwise known as CHAP, where they have come up with this community hub model with where Kimberly Fennessy works. She is a community health worker. She goes out into the community, meeting these moms where they are in their homes to talk about what's bothering them. How can we alleviate your stress? Maybe it has to do with helping make your doctor's appointments. Maybe it has to do with helping you find housing, or something simple like bringing diapers for your baby that they either don't have the resources for, or maybe not the time to go get it because they have 5 other children at home. So we were able to visit the home of Amber Parker. She's 27 years old. She has 5 children. One of them she had at the age of 19, actually doesn't live with her, but she has 3 children at home with her. Serville, who's this little guy you see on the screen, is 1 year old, and she's 7 months pregnant. So she is no stranger to stress in her life. She doesn't work, her fiance works, but she talked about how she just never has a moment to herself. It's always just, she's always on the go, 24/7 mother, and that weighs on your body. I also talked to Pam Crank and Dick Stedman. They're from Richland Pregnancy Services in Mansfield, and they actually run a mentor service. It's mother to mother and father to father, and they meet with these young moms and young dads one-on-one to talk about things like alleviating stress. And Dick told me this story where he actually met with a young man who didn't realize that stress didn't have to be a constant in his life, that you could actually, work through that and make things better. And he was just shocked that you could actually do something about your stress. And I also spoke to Angela Newman from the Ohio Equity Institute. They work more in Cuyahoga County, where Cleveland is. And I'll get to this in a minute, but they actually gave us a great idea for a community engagement resource. But I do want to play a little bit of this video to kind of give you an insight into what Kim does and the life of Amber Parker. Oh, maybe not.
My name is Kimberly Fennessy, and I am a community health worker. I work with women here in Richland County, help linking them up to resources and services in the community to help eliminate barriers that may cause them to have a preterm delivery. Today we're going to go out to one of my clients. She is about 7 months pregnant. She has 4 other children. She found out she was pregnant in the latter part of her pregnancy. And then this just talks about having a healthy baby, what you can do to have a healthy baby. Keep your regular appointments, healthy lifestyle.
I have trouble asking people for different things, so I just felt like they would be a good source to help me as far as, my emotions or if I need anything.
Normally, a visit would consist of me doing a checklist. The client, answers the questions, and if there's something that needs to be resolved, that's what we work on.
So did they tell you to put on any special formula? Or?
No, they just told me to keep using the formula until he could.
So as Kim was saying, they go through these checklists that say, what are some things that you're doing? What do you need help on? And every yes answer generates a pathway that they then can help that mother on. And I should mention, this video is actually produced with the help of the grant funding. Normally, Jay mentioned this a little earlier, but we only have 12 people in our whole company. We only have 4 news reporters that are full-time, so when you talk about actual bylines, it's pretty much just me. It's definitely a team effort because you have to have the other people to feed the beast, but while I work on this project. So normally we would produce those things, like a video, by myself. And to have this grant funding to outsource that and save me a little bit of time and stress, that was very helpful. So when you talk about community engagement, this quote from Debbie Allen kind of really stuck with me, that the mere act of having community engagement could be a stress reliever, and that just the fact that we're talking about this issue, you know, that could be a way of reducing stress, because then you're actually talking about it, getting it out in the open instead of internalizing the stress that you may have. So the Ohio Equity Institute gave us this idea for a community engagement event by something they held, which is to have kind of, we're calling it a community baby shower that is TBD, because Richland Source is actually in the process of moving to a bigger building because we've outgrown ourselves. So because we want to have it in our newsroom, in our facilities, to bring people to us, to have you know, a way for these moms to come communicate with us, and then we provide them with resources you know, to help them in return. So we had a whole team brainstorming session, and we came up with the idea of this community baby shower hosted by us. Our offices are right in downtown Mansfield, so it's easily accessible to pretty much everyone. And we wanted to have it during the summer months because for walkability purposes, particularly since the population that we really want to reach sometimes has trouble with transportation. So if it's easily walkable downtown, then that's fine. Some of the things that we ruled out during this process, we talked about having the shower off-site, but we really wanted to, number one, save costs. We wanted to spend this money wisely. And also, you know, access, plus the fact that we really, like I said, wanted to bring the community to us so that we could engage with them and they could engage with us where we are. We talked about the idea of listening posts, there's that word again, but we talked about the idea of that in the community, but we were a little worried with our small team of like who would manage that, and not having enough questions really to ask in the community, but we are going to implement that in our community baby shower setting to where there's a moment or there's a space where they can come talk to us if they want to. They don't feel any pressure to, but you know, if they can talk to us and we can ask them, like, what are some stressors you go through? What's your everyday like? Then we can kind of sneak journalism in with the community baby shower, along with like all the cool stuff that they're doing. We also talked about doing lunch and learns because education was really important to us doing this project. We were afraid that it was going to be too cut and dry and that people might not attend. So we're incorporating that in the community baby shower part by having educational speakers come and have little like 5 or 10 minute segments where they talk. And at the end of that segment, then they get an incentive, they get a little reward. So it's like you get cool free stuff that we are working with local organizations. There's about 16 local organizations that provide these services. Plus sponsors that might want to, you know, donate diapers or something, and so that way you get the draw of, you know, you get free things because who doesn't like that, and plus they get sneakily educated. We can, you know, do journalism at the same time, and it uses the grant funding as efficiently as we can. we hope this will work, this idea of this baby shower, because number one, it will bring all of our local agencies together and bring them right to their target audiences, these pregnant women in this community that really are the people that they should be reaching. We also have a problem that I've heard of in the community, that agencies don't communicate among each other, and there might be duplication of services or services that people aren't even aware of. So we really want to inform the community by bringing them together. Like I said, the educational stations kind of sneakily educate them while they're having fun. And then by being creative with our space, the office that we're moving to is very large. And we actually plan on using part of our grant funding to hire an event planner that will actually make this space inviting and make it more of an experience and something that people want to come to and that they'll actually enjoy and remember, instead of, you know, kind of a job fair setting where it's just tables and pamphlets. You know, we want it to be engaging and inviting. So what's next? One of the things that I've heard over and over again is that there is no silver bullet to this problem. There's not, especially when you think about the fact that so many other issues are rolled into infant mortality. I mean, the interviews that I had, it was like we started talking about infant mortality and then we end on racism, or we end on the economy, or we end on poverty. And it's like, how can you solve infant mortality before solving all of these other problems? It's like you have to achieve world peace before you can start to save babies. But something that Karen Downs from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health told me is that really stuck with me. You have to just keep plugging along. You have to keep moving forward and doing what you can to make a difference. And that's all we're trying to do, and that's all we can do. We definitely want to move forward with this community engagement, this event. We also want to talk about, I feel like the series is never ending. We published the first three stories of this particular series with the help of the Solutions Journalism funding this week, actually. And I could probably write 3 more right off the top of my head, much less the fact that there's, you know, so much more that I can do. So I'm not really sure where it's going to go. To be honest, I thought it might end after the baby boxes, and it was like, that's the happy ending, but there's so much more to it, and hopefully we can continue this work. Thank you. Questions?
Yeah. Is there anybody in your community there's someone in your community that is distributing baby boxes?
Yes, there are actually, I can think of 2 organizations off the top of my head, which are the YMCA and we have Richland Public Health, so our county health department, that are distributing baby boxes right now.
Have you guys considered having anything, I thought about having baby boxes printed or something that has the Richland news on it, or some item that they'll use that has your brand?
We've definitely considered that, especially as a way of community outreach. Part of the community baby shower, we thought, if the public health department wants to bring baby boxes to this shower to distribute, then they're more than happy to do that. We wanted to be cautious, though, of advocating for one specific solution. So we really had to walk that line when the baby boxes were being introduced in Richland County, because people kind of looked to us as like the baby box people. And me, particularly as a journalist, I was like, okay, this is super cool, and I realize this is kind of my baby, no pun intended, but I also don't want to associate myself too much with that, because I really wanted the community to pick up the ball and run with it, and they really did. So that's definitely something we've considered, and we certainly support it, but we don't want to, we're trying to walk that line of like saying Richland Source endorses baby boxes, you know what I mean? So. That's perfect. Anyone else? Yeah. So when the Baby Box program launched in Richland County on March 10th, there are really two main, I guess, competitors of Richland Source. There's a print paper, and then there's a TV station. And they were there at that event, but they've kind of stayed away from it other than that. I think, I don't really know why. I think they kind of just are like, that's Richland Source's thing. But we're pretty much the only people writing about infant mortality in our county right now. We are online only, but we do publish every day, yeah. Yeah.
How do you balance all the solutions journalism and other enterprise reporting you do with the sort of what you have to cover every day?
It's very difficult, especially for me personally, and that's why I have to give a lot of credit to the rest of our newsroom, because when I'm working, like particularly on this last project, probably the last 2 weeks, I've been really cracking down and like transcribing, writing, and not really doing much anything else. And so that kind of I kind of rely on my team to pick up my slack when you're talking about day-to-day reporting. And I have to give a lot of credit to my bosses too for allowing me to do that. But especially when you think about the fact that there's there are other colleagues of mine that want to pursue solutions journalism. I hope to eventually take a little step back from the infant mortality stuff in order to let them move forward with their own projects too. So it really is a balancing act with helping the other team members, plus managing my own time, especially because, I mean, this was literally just me writing and reporting and traveling and doing all this stuff. So yeah, it's been difficult, but I think it's worthwhile, and it's definitely part of our mission. So I'm just glad that I have the support to do that. One more.
Thinking from the perspective of the kind of tools or resources that the network could provide, are there certain things that would make your job easier on the next series in terms of like finding who's doing better other places, or whatever places you ended up spending a lot of time on spinning your wheels, that something might have been helpful?
That's a really good question. I might have to think about that. But off the top of my head, I would say just the manpower. Having maybe a person that is dedicated to doing this. We've talked about the idea of having a solutions journalism reporter within our organization that only works on these type of projects, so that other people can also cover the news of Richland County and Mansfield. But I'll think about that and get back to you.
How much of the time was it spent on research versus writing and direct reporting?
Well, I'm trying to think. I want to say about a month of research, and then a week or two of writing. All right, I think that's it. Thank you, guys.
Like something out of the Disney World, but it's actually a very serious organization. And if this meets with your approval, we would proceed that way. We would invite Jessica now, and then after that, I don't think we have to clear the room until 4:45. So it'll be free flow discussion and conversation and questions and reflections for the entire group, if that is okay. Excellent. How long would that be? One hour for today. Bruce, we may need to this requires scene setting.
Hi. Okay, we're set, if you want to.
I need to move the direction.
Yeah. Sorry. Alright, let me know if you need it. Oh, yeah, no problem. Give me 1 second.
Are they going to be able to see the screen?
Oh, we need to slide it down. We have play. Sorry.
Aha.
Oh, it doesn't stay. I'm so sorry. We will slide it in when the time comes. That's right.
Wait. Sorry to be so complicated. Hey everyone, while we're waiting, pull your boxes out and open up your card.